while assisting with the economic development in Western New York. Some of his local projects include the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, the Buffalo Harbor Development, and UB 2020. Mr. Levesque holds a Master's of Business Administration and a Bachelor of Arts in Media Studies at the University of Buffalo. And without further ado.
All right. Well, thank you, Chuck, and thank you for everybody for coming here today. I'm going to switch over. There we go. So we're going to do a high-level talk on Buffalo's Inner and Outer Harbor and the visualization that we've developed for it. When a lot of people think of Buffalo, there's usually two things they think about: is losing sports teams and lots of snow. So we tried to change that around a little bit and kind of show people that there's a lot more going on in Buffalo. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about who was involved in this project, a little bit of Buffalo's history, some of the simulation overview, challenges we faced, what we did, and where we're going in the future. So we'll start with who's involved. So I'm located in the Center for Computational Research, which is the high-performance computing, this is flickering like crazy, high-performance computing facility at the University at Buffalo. So we do a lot of big data analysis. We work with a lot of scientists, researchers, and help them develop software, as well as kind of allow them to use our clusters to kind of, why is this? It's not flickering over here, but yeah, we'll just keep going. One of the other things we also do is we excel in simulation and visualization. So we work with local companies in a lot of cases and kind of augment their capabilities that they might not have in-house, but we allow them to use our facilities to kind of aid them. All right, well, we'll forge on. So our visualization team is myself. I do 3D modeling, mostly in Maya and Presages Creator. I also supervise, train, and mentor our students. And in this program, in this visualization, we have Martin Zinnes, who is kind of a programmer, technical wizard, and all-around creator. He's the one that wrote the engine that we currently use, and is also kind of solves little programs here and there. So for this particular project, this was brought on by the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation. We worked with Parsons Brinkerhoff, who were the chief engineers for the bridge development. We worked with Wendell, which is another local firm, the University at Buffalo, as well as Bergman Associates, who we work with Chuck frequently. Yeah, it was working earlier, fine. So let's go talk a little bit about Buffalo's history. So in the 1880s, Buffalo was a booming city. The Erie Canal allowed Buffalo to become one of the richest cities in the country. It actually, at that time, had more millionaires than any other city in the country, and the city was really prosperous and really grew, and continued until the 1950s. In this case, this was still being very successful at the time, but then the St. Lawrence Seaway opened up, and it really took all the shipping business out of Buffalo and kind of destroyed our waterfront. So that brings us to 2007, where we joined. We worked with the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation to kind of visualize where they're going and what they want to see in our waterfront. So the primary objective of creating the simulation was to support public and agency understanding of the Buffalo Harbor Bridge project and its alternatives, while at the same time helping to advance the project through an environmental impact statement. In addition to this, we wanted to educate the public through the visualization and kind of help them understand what is being proposed, what's actually there, and what they're actually doing. A lot of times in Buffalo, you'll run into people and they don't understand the amount of change that's happening in the city. They believe that nothing's being done, and we wanted to kind of change that attitude and kind of show them, hey, stuff is going on here, there is work being done, and we're really proud of what's going on, and this is what's happening and where we're going in the future. Thank you. That was great work. So the inner and outer harbor of Buffalo looks like about this. So this is the inner harbor, which includes downtown, and the outer harbor, which is kind of a peninsula on the outside down there. There's the old shipping docks there. There's a lot of private boat areas, and the downtown is where the the hockey team plays and all the main financial district. So if you look at this model, getting to the inner and outer harbor is a bit of a, at this current phase, a bit of a chore. You have to go all the way, either go through the Skyway down here, get off down there, travel down there, or you have to take this yellow road all the way down here and reach that area over there. Something like that takes 15 to 20 minutes, and they want to create something, since it's being redeveloped, they want to create it in a way that they actually reach there sooner. So they had proposed different bridge alternatives, either crossing Main Street at Buffalo here, or Erie Street down here. In addition to this, they wanted to showcase what was going on down at the Buffalo Harbor, so you can actually see and understand all the development that's happening, and also use as a marketing tool to kind of sell to developers as well as little businesses that might be interested in building on that property. So these were the main challenges that we faced. Was the analyzing the impact. This was in particular of the potential bridges to be built there. How are they going to happen? What is it going to look like? How is this going to actually be built? We're going to effectively try to communicate this to both the agencies, stakeholders, as well as the public. We wanted to make sure they bought into this, they understand there, and they were able to actually see what was going on. They wanted to get them involved in the process. And then at the same time, we wanted to build consensus with them so they felt they were contributing and they were also being part of this. So we didn't want to just say we're bulldozing this area, we're building this down here. Instead, we want to get their input, what they thought, which alternative looked best to them, how would we build this, and what would the impact be in the area. So back in 2007, this was a lot of what we started with. We had over 300 gigabytes of terrain data that was provided by New York State GIS. We had over 2,500 photographs, which we went out and took. We created over 1,000 unique textures. We had some BIM models. We had 2D, 3D CAD. We had some drawings that were on napkins. We had blueprints, and we had GIS data. And be able to integrate all that into something was, firstly, one of the biggest technical challenges we faced. In case of the blueprints, Buffalo has a naval museum on the waterfront, and there are 3 decommissioned military vessels in the water. So we actually got the pre-1940s build plans for these vessels, and actually had to build them from these blueprints we had to scan in and recreate the images. So in that case, this is what the visualization looks like circa 2008. So we have the commercial slip, which recreates the Erie Canal entrance into Buffalo, and some of the building. We'll show more of this later. So this is the whole scope of the model. This is about 15 square miles that it incorporates. This is all in high detail, and then we have low detail on the outside. You can see some of the lines going through it here. We built this in kind of like a modular fashion where it was all cube-based geometry. So the project expanded, initially started at 3 square miles, and then as it grew and we kind of built additional projects into it, we were able to actually swap them in and out, high detail with low detail, without having to rebuild the model. We've had experiences in the past where we've built the UB campuses, and we built them in such a fashion that if we needed to change terrain, it would break the entire process and we'd have to start everything over again. We wanted to avoid that and be able to build it all in one unified model. This also allows us to kind of implement it into the entire New York Erie County. Erie County is one of the counties within New York, and we have all the 3D terrain data for that. So we're able to actually integrate this into the terrain data, and as we build projects throughout Buffalo, start to populate it and have a much bigger visual database. So in 2005, this is what the harbor looked like. It was kind of run down. It had a museum there, the warships there, and kind of a dirty park that was there. In 2008, the first phase of the development was to add this channel here, the commercial slip, rebuild the Naval Museum, move it over there, and move all the decommissioned vehicles out over there and create a boardwalk type atmosphere here. In 2009, the Odd came down, which is where the Sabres used to play in Buffalo, and they started adding commercial boats to come out. People can ride them around the waterfront. 2010, they started creating more walkable space over here in preparation of building businesses. You'll notice that this is big concrete monstrosity in the middle of the city is known as the Skyway, and unfortunately, there are all sorts of things that prevent it from actually being come down at the present time. So it's kind of bifurcating the entire development process within the area. And then in 2012, the boardwalk extends, the aerial imagery gets updated. And finally, in 2013, which is being built right now, is the expansion of the canal slip further on to the development. So as you get down there, we're able to actually fly from low detail to high detail and be able to see the different build processes. And in this case, a view of the naval ships recreated. So the other, that was just kind of selling the people on what's actually happening in Buffalo and show them that, hey, development is happening here. The main thrust of the project was actually this bridge study. So in this case, there was actually 7 development objects for, development alternatives for the bridge. There's this green one that was located here at Erie Street, this light blue one, and these were developed by Parsons Brinkerhoff. There were 2 at Main Street in the red area. There was 1 lift bridge and 1 bascule bridge. There was another purple option, which was bascule and lift, and finally there was just a lift going off, known as the south. So using this model, we actually able to look at the different bridge options and kind of get an idea of what it looks like from an aerial perspective and see the lift bridge versus the bascule bridge, but also from a ground perspective. So allowed the people to come in. We gave the public access to this. They had a Xbox 360 controller. They were flying around, be able to see the bridge options, see how they affected their impact, the visual impact of the area, and be able to actually see where they like this bridge and understand where the traffic would go, what it would impact in the area, if it would affect one of the parks or if it would affect parking, and be able to really understand this. One of the interesting side notes of this is that one of the lift bridges, when it was actually initially created, it was kind of created in a vacuum. It wasn't actually taking into account all the other objects around it, in particular the skyway. So when we received the bridge actually intersected with the skyway above it, and it would have been a costly mistake if they would have started actually building it without seeing it inside the context of everything else. So by that little implementation into it, we were able to actually kind of better their proposals and actually improve the look of the bridge. So in case anybody curious, this is still not built. This is actually still in proposal phase right now. So what are we doing next? So in addition to that the commercial slip area and the bridges, we've also began implementing many different other projects in the area. So we have development happening in the waterfront down there. This is Route 5, which was redeveloped, Ohio Street, which we'll show a little bit more afterwards. Some of the development, which is they're building a hockey rink and a commercial tower there. Additional development along Erie. And so you can see a bunch of other projects have started to fit into this, and we started to grow this exponentially over the years. So in the case of Ohio Street, this is what it was initially. It was just kind of a plot of land. You can see the old grain elevators over there, more grain elevators that are not really used anymore. But they start to turn it into more of a park where they host concerts now, and people actually can ride their bikes and connect to the Inner Harbor by just a main roadway. So we're also starting to take all this stuff into smartphone and tablet applications. In the same case of Bergman, we are using Unity as our go-to engine now for developing the stuff. The size of this project at its current phase has kind of limited us with a lot of what Unity can do. We can run it through a PC just fine. The Unity works fine, but once we start translating it to a mobile device, it just completely kills the mobile device. We haven't had time to actually be able to LOD a lot of the data just so it can actually stream efficiently. Any questions? If not, I will go to some of our videos. All right. So I'll show you first is the video throughout, it's kind of giving an overview of the initial project. Yes?
Do you expect to be able to use the model to also do your demolition plan for the Skyway?
The Skyway is currently not planned for demolition. There are talks for it where we do a phased kind of a breakdown of it so you can actually show if it was to be broken out, how it would happen or how it could happen. There's a big controversy right now. If the bridge doesn't happen, there's no other way to get to the outer harbor that way, so they needed to keep it there. But if it does happen, how do we do it while still having this bridge into this park underneath it. Yes?
So you're using Unity?
This one is a engine we wrote in-house based on Open Scene Graph. At 2007, there wasn't really many options. We were initially using Performer, and that had ended up folding, so we had to switch to, at the time, Vega, which is another Prestigious product. But that also had a lot of expenses where we couldn't give the project to people, or they couldn't view it without having a license, and it got way too expensive to actually use that software. So we decided to solve it and just write an engine ourselves. So by writing the engine, it allowed us to kind of do real-time traffic data, but also kind of house all this stuff without having much loss in performance. But unfortunately, doing that, we couldn't translate easily into the mobile device, and that's kind of why we're transitioning into the Unity development right now.
I was curious as to how you generated the animations out of the real time.
We have a little software plugin that we also created that allows us to kind of set up paths and kind of create our own video based off that. And this is the first phase of the bridge project and allows it to show the different bridge alternatives in the area. This one, it goes north of the grain elevator. That one goes south of the grain elevator.
Did you model these buildings as well, or get them out of 3D warehouse, or?
The initial wave of buildings we purchased through, what was it, the PLW. They gave us a kind of a base of a lot of the existing buildings that are surrounding. A lot of them you'll see in low detail. Some of the buildings like at that time, HSBC Arena, we took the shell that they gave us and we reskinned it, so we created much higher resolution textures for it. And then new buildings that were proposed, we took from 3D CAD data or 2D CAD data and just simply rebuilt them ourselves. So we took all that, added all the textures, reduced all the geometry that was inside of it so we didn't have all the piping, the nuts and bolts work, and just implemented in there. In this case, it's kind of showing all that they wanted to use this for a public presentation to show the development and kind of sell some of the area around there and give an idea of what it could potentially look like in the winter when it's all lovely in Buffalo. All right, I think that's all I have, if there's any other further questions. Okay, thank you.
Well, that concludes our session for today. You are now mere moments from beer. There's a vendor reception right out where we were for break. Please go by each vendor if you can and thank them, and also see what they have to offer as well, because without them it would be a much more expensive conference to attend to. So thank you very much, and thanks to our speakers today as well.